Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Mayank. I'm a second year student at HEC Paris, studying the Masters in Management and specializing in marketing. Are you studying or working abroad just like I am? Then you probably know that, it's a really nice experience and it looks great on Instagram, but it's not always easy. I've been both an expat working abroad in Los Angeles as well as an international student in Paris. And in this video, I'm gonna tap into my experiences to share with you my ways of feeling at home in both these places. These are especially the things I wish I knew before I started my HEC Paris gap year. Keep watching if that's something you plan to do. Before I get into it, I also want to tell you that I've crossed 100 subscribers on my email list and I'm gonna be starting to send emails very soon. I'll be sending emails about my current inspirations, thoughts and resources, the things that I'm inspired by, the things that I'm watching, reading, basically anything that comes to my mind and what's helping me grow, and I'll be sharing that on my email list. So if you haven't already, go sign up for the email list and you will not regret it. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get straight right into it. Tip number 1 is to set up your space at home in a way that reminds you who you are and where you're coming from. Your space is your sanctuary, and when you're abroad, it can be really easy to lose yourself in a good way into a new language, a new culture, new people, new job, new course. But when you come back home at the end of the day, or if you're just spending your entire day at home, as is the case right now, you don't want to remain lost the entire time. You want to find yourself, and that's what your space is going to help you do. Let's see how I've set up my space in Paris. I put these cards on this one side of my table, and most of these cards were given to me by people, or they just remind me of something specific. I've even put up photo prints because I like them. On my bookshelf, I have some fridge magnets that remind me of my travels, and I also have some beer cap magnets of my favorite beers. I even have some books, a lot of them that I don't read because I read on my Kindle, but I still like having them there because they remind me of something. Oh yeah, and I also have my box of postcards that I've collected over the years from different museums and tourist shops. I have a bunch of other souvenirs in my room as well, and all of them just serve to remind me that, I have all these amazing, memorable experiences, and they just make me feel a lot more at home. But you might be asking me, what if I'm just gonna stay in a place for a couple of months and not more? Like, what if I just don't want to have all this stuff with me? When I was in Los Angeles and I was just there for like 5 months, I set up my space in a kind of personal way as well, as much as I could. I had this framed artwork of Paris that I'd got from some Facebook group for free, and also some other knickknacks here and there, things that I collected during my time in LA to remind myself that this is my home now. But weirdly enough, when I was in LA, I felt like I was coming from Paris because it felt like my main life was in Paris and the LA thing was just a temporary stint. All of this stuff might feel cheesy for some people, and it probably is. But honestly, for me, being surrounded by these kind of things make me feel really grounded. And they just serve as a reminder that, I come from somewhere. When you've just moved abroad, it's really easy to lose your identity. And this is a great way to find it every day. Also, it's super funny that now that I'm back in Paris, I have things in my room that remind me of LA because that was my home at one time as well. Tip number 2 is to find local food that you love and then really make it yours. Feeling at home also means making this new place your home. And that includes the food. It's too easy to bring a suitcase full of food from home. But how long is that gonna last you? If you're gonna depend on that to feel at home, you're always depending on something that's hard to get and that's gonna get over at some point. The thing that I love doing whenever I visit any new city, even when I'm traveling or when I move there, is to go to the supermarket and try a bunch of things. And not just one time, but like multiple times. The first few weeks you're there, try a whole bunch of stuff from the supermarket and remember your favorites. That way you can just go back again and again and get those same things and they become your comfort food, they become your home food. And now you have food that makes you feel at home in your new home. In Paris, my favorite supermarket foods are this infusion from Twinings, sriracha sauce from the Asian section, lotus speculoos paste with bread, and this oriental spice mix. None of these are French, but they're my favorite things to get here in the French supermarket. Oh, and also tartare, this garlic and herb spread. It's absolutely wonderful with toast. When I was in LA, I was totally spoiled for choice. But one of the things that I loved making was an acai bowl. I mean, come on, this thing looks amazing, doesn't it? Another one was this chicken rice recipe, and like my friends all know how much I love chicken rice. But yeah, so this is where it came from. This chicken rice recipe that my flatmate from Singapore taught me. And that was basically chicken, Japanese rice, broccoli, whole bunch of other veggies, and this little spice called jeeravan that one of my Indian friends at HEC gave me as a parting gift. Yeah, it was amazing. Funnily, now when I look back, I associate these foods with LA because I was having them so much when I was there. It's for this reason that I never bring that much food from India with me. While I love Indian food, I don't want to be dependent on it. I want to make this new place my home, and that includes the food. That's why my rule is to not be dependent. Dependent meaning just having something every day or every week on something that I cannot get at the local supermarket. Of course, I have some Indian snacks with me and a lot of ready-to-eats as well, just in case I'm feeling like eating Indian food. but it's not something that I eat every day or every week. It's just once in a while whenever I really feel like it. Tip number 3 is to find a group of people with the same hobbies or same interests. I think it's pretty clear by now that feeling at home is mostly about identity and belonging. When you feel in touch with who you are and when you feel like you belong, you feel at home. And this is why it's important to be surrounded by people that allow you to do both these things. And the best way to start is finding people with similar hobbies and interests. When I was in LA, this was my strategy. I would go to meetup.com at the beginning of every week and sign up for 1 or 2 events that week that seemed interesting to me. I did allow myself to cancel if I didn't feel like going that day, or even if I reached there and I didn't get a right vibe. But I did end up going to a lot of meetups that way. I went to this French speakers meetup where I met these 2 guys, and the 3 of us ended up meeting every single week on Thursday evening, sipping cocktails and talking in French for 3 hours. It was amazing. I also went to a bi-weekly language exchange party, which was super fun. And that's where I met this other French woman who introduced me to improv comedy. And so I joined improv comedy classes and I met a whole bunch of other people there as well. Of course, I did end up going to meetups that weren't as fun, or they were just fun one time but I didn't really feel like going back, and I just never went again. It's all about giving it a shot and seeing what happens. When I was doing my second internship in Paris 1 year ago, I wanted to make new friends as well. And so I went to this Chinese New Year dinner that was hosted by some members of the Asian Creative Network in Paris. It was a completely open Facebook event. And some 7 or 8 people showed up at this Chinese restaurant. I didn't know anyone, I just showed up there, and that's where I met Hannah, who's one of my really good friends right now. She's into a whole bunch of creative things just like me, and me and her take day trips every now and then around Paris. Oh, and we also do random photo and video shoots just for fun, because why not? If you want to see all these photos that I take around Paris in my life here, yeah, you should totally follow me on Instagram. I think you'll really enjoy it. Getting back to the video, in my first year at HEC, I joined this club on campus called KIP. KIP was a media club, and through KIP, I met Hugo, who's another really good friend of mine right now. He's French and he's the founder of this club. He's also super creative, we have a lot of similar interests, and we do photo walks around Paris whenever we can. I even visited his hometown last summer and went on a trip with him and 2 of his childhood friends, and that was great. It was a lot of fun. Through KIP, I also met a bunch of other French friends and we did a couple of trips together. It was a lot of fun. I've made an entire video about this actually, like my approach of finding friends. It's called the funnel theory, and there's a YouTube video. You should go check it out. It'll be somewhere here, but like, yeah, watch it after you watch this one. Of course, when you're studying abroad, it's way easier to make new friends because you can just meet them naturally through class or on campus. But when you're working, it's much harder because you really need to push yourself to do things. It doesn't happen naturally, unless you make friends at work, which is great, but like, you don't want to limit your friend circle just to people at work. My last tip is to make a weekly schedule at the beginning of every week. When you're a student, your weekly schedule gets set by your classes and assignments, and your weekend schedule gets set by classmates and new friends who are just as eager to meet you and do things as you are. But when you're an expat working abroad, like how I was in Los Angeles, especially in the first few weeks or months when you don't already have an established social circle, there are many times when you finish work at the end of the day and you're like, now what? Or like Friday evening comes around and you're like, oh, I have like 2 more days which I'm completely free, have nothing to do. And that usually comes along with a feeling of loneliness, and it really sucks. The best way to deal with this, I found, is to sit down at the beginning of every week, probably Sunday evening or Sunday morning or whenever you have some downtime, and making a plan for the week ahead, like a fun plan. I would make a calendar of things that you're gonna do that week, after work or on the weekend. This can be meetups that you find online, like I mentioned before. It can be concerts that you wanna attend. It can be hanging out with friends. But you know, it can also just be planning on doing things by yourself. And in the beginning, you're probably gonna do a lot of those. And that's completely fine. In LA, I used to dedicate certain evenings just to cycle on the beach by myself. Certain other evenings were to visit this particular coffee shop that I like, drink my coffee and read a book. Other evenings were to skateboard around the neighborhood just for fun. Or I would attend a meetup, I would attend my improv comedy class, I would attend that weekly French speakers thing. And sometimes I would just decide to visit a particular restaurant by myself. But the important thing was that I planned all of this out in advance, so that in the beginning of the week, I knew that, yeah, I have a whole bunch of things planned out and I'm busy, dude. And yeah, that made me feel a lot more at home, and it made me feel a lot more grounded. And over time, actually very, very quickly, as I made friends, I included them in my calendar as well. And then my calendar became this whole thing of like doing fun things throughout the week. Every day of the week I had something or the other fun planned out. And that definitely made me feel a lot more settled in. I guess when you're in college, this just happens naturally, but when you're working, it takes a bit of effort to get this going. So if you're doing an internship abroad while at HEC during your gap year or anytime else, I think this can be really useful. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you got some helpful tips for when you do your gap year or when you start studying or interning abroad. If you liked it, hit that like button, it really helps me out, and also consider hitting that subscribe button because I'll be uploading a lot more content just like this every single week. Ooh, maybe you also want to click on either of these two videos because they might help you out as well. Alright, see you guys in the next one.